This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 262 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Fergus, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Hi, Philip.
Hi, Reese. Here we are again, huh?
Here we are again. So, Philip, I have got to wish you a happy second Dressage Radio Show anniversary.
Yeah, I think it's come around to that time, hasn't it?
It has.
Pretty
I
fast.
feel like we just did this. Yes.
Yeah, pretty
So
fast.
I don't exactly remember when my start date was June 1st.
Yeah,
2 years
mine
ago.
is a few weeks later because you
Yeah.
tried out 10 other people before I got this job.
Just two.
Yeah.
Two.
Just
You were the
two.
best, though.
Oh, okay. I don't think so. I was the most manly, the most male.
You were the most male. Exactly. No, are you kidding? We had the best on-air chemistry.
Oh,
But,
okay.
but anyways, happy anniversary. I can't believe
Awesome.
it's been 2 years, and I look forward to many, many more shows for sure. So
We have to inform our listeners, right? I want to tell our listeners about some stuff we recorded for a couple weeks from now.
Yes.
As we were thinking of ideas. Should we do for our 2-year anniversary? And we separately did interviews with Glenn about everything about our lives except horses.
Yeah.
Was that a good way
Mine
to
still
sum it
had
up?
horses. Yeah, mine still had horses in it, but it's kind of was an inside the actor studio
Yeah.
interview.
Type interview.
Yep. So that'll be on in a couple weeks. So I hope everybody will enjoy kind of hearing about it. I heard from Glenn. I just did mine before we got on the air here, and I heard you were quite chatty. You were longer
I just
than
tried
me.
to talk. Once you get me started, I can't stop. And there's
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not always the most normal person, so I got to talk about some of the weird things that I about my life, I guess, or weird things about me. So we were just chatting. We had a good time. I was definitely not much on the subject of horses, but we had a lot of fun, and I think they're interesting interviews. If you're looking for trainer tips for that day, that's not the
That's not your
episode
day.
to
Yeah.
listen to.
No trainer tips. So that will air in a couple weeks. So it should be really fun. And that was actually one of our listeners requested to hear a little bit more about us. So I hope we're entertaining. I tried to be entertaining. I don't know.
So,
But,
and I heard because of our idea, they're going to do it with all of the
Yeah.
hosts over all of the shows. So that should be really funny, actually.
We could be getting some hate mail. Yeah, we could get some hate mail on this one, but no. But it's been a super fun ride, and it's a pleasure to come on every week and get to talk to everybody. And we have a really great show. We actually have a blogger coming on, Bonnie Walker, from DressageDifferent.com, and she is a lot of fun. And I think you'll really enjoy kind of the conversation that we had with her
I think
today.
if you're on Facebook and you've got a few dressage friends, you probably come across her blogs or the kind of articles, I guess you can call them also. So it's interesting to see kind of where this stuff come from. We've had a few bloggers on. I think for me it's interesting because I get to talk to them. We get a little more in depth with stuff they've written about, and it's fun. It's good. It's just dressage, right? And you get different perspectives, and we get to talk a lot, which I like. So looking forward to that. I'm pleased that she was able to come on and share some stuff with us. So. Great interview.
Absolutely. I know. And we're going to do a trainer tip, you and I together here. And it's actually from Beth Baumert, 8 training tips from Kira Kirkland.
Yeah, we had Carl Hesters, I think, on a while ago. And he had maybe 30 or so. And that was kind of popular and it was fun to talk about. So Kira Kirkland, dressage master. She's trained so many great people, so many great horses. It's great. It's hard to get to talk to these people who live in Europe and are so busy and stuff. So we'll steal some ideas from articles they're involved with and have written in, or and that comes from Dressage Today, which is an awesome magazine that we talk about a whole lot. So perfect. It lines right up with doing the show and stuff like this. But before we get to that, Reese.
Yes.
We've seen on your Facebook some story or something to do with some skunks. You want to give us the lowdown on that?
Yeah, this is I couldn't figure out how the horses were spooking in my ring. They were all spooking down by the mirrors, and it's been going on for a couple months, and it was driving me crazy. So a couple weeks ago, I think it was a couple weeks ago, they were like the wall essentially sort of caved in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't good. So
what do you mean the wall caved in?
Yeah, like right by the post, like it sort of caved in, right? So I was like, oh, we got to go fix that.
The dirt?
Oh, yeah, like the dirt. So there were like holes, like right by between the ring and the footer. You know, I'm not very good with building terms, but there were like holes there. So I was like, oh, Jose, we got to go fill these. So Jose and I grabbed some rock and we were going down there to fill them. And Jose goes, I think there's a snake in there. Well, one thing about me is I am terrified of snakes. Like I just can't. I will freeze. I can't. So I mean, I'm out of there. I'm like, peace out. So then I call my trusty assistant, Alexis, in. I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, what is down there? And she goes, oh my God, it has eyes. So she goes running out. So now poor Jose is now in there by himself, and we're kind of peeking around. And somehow he figured out that the mama skunk goes running away, but he finds 3 baby skunks and pulls them out. They were really cute.
With his hand?
I don't know. Again, okay. I can't.
You weren't involved in this in case it was a snake.
I was not involved. I thought it was a snake, so I was like way far away. I am like outside the building, like freaking out with a pitchfork. Like I'm done. So Jose pulls these babies out. I think he had gloves on because I think they can be dangerous. And thankfully, there's a wonderful place here in Lexington that I have taken baby raccoons to. And she's a friend of mine now. And Karen Bailey of the Kentucky Wildlife Center. I called her. We put the baby skunks after much discussion on how we were going to transport these skunks. Because I have my brand new truck and they were not going in my truck, but I was like, I don't want to hurt the babies. So it was this whole discussion. So we like padded the back of the truck and put them in a box with some shavings. And, we had these poked little air holes in them. And so skunks rode over to Karen's in style, not in the back of my truck. They were in the bed, not in the actual back of my truck. Well, then, okay, now we have a really, really, really pissed off mama skunk in the wall.
Yeah.
So
took her babies.
Yes, I know she was mad. So Karen's like, well, you need to trap the mom. And I was like, well,
how do I do that?
How do I do that? So we put traps out, but Mama has been now digging along the sides of the walls looking for her babies. And so it's very, very sad. So we have been trying to trap Mama, but Mama has eluded all of our efforts at this point. So I'm just hoping with all my might that Mama has moved on to another indoor.
Yes.
So I don't know where Mama is. I'm afraid one day I'm just going to walk in there and she's just going to Matrix move me from the ceiling because she's mad I took her babies. But I walk in there and I tell her every day that her babies are safe and they're living.
Her babies are fine. Yeah.
So it was a very, very entertaining.
It's all part of farm ownership.
This is farm ownership that I really wanted nothing to do with. So here we are. So it's been a very entertaining couple of days with the skunk. But I did actually call critter control this week because I'm like, okay, we're not having any luck here.
Right.
So I'm going to actually call some professionals. Apparently, you can trap skunks with fig Newtons. So I have fig Newtons everywhere.
They like fig Newtons, huh?
Apparently, they like fig Newtons. And it's very weird that the skunk would still be out in Kentucky at this time. And I just hope she never, ever, ever returns and she just goes about her business, which would be perfect. So it's been entertaining. So the horses are no longer spooking at that end of the ring, though.
Yeah, they solved solved your horse problem, yeah.
Yeah, if your horses are spooking in your ring.
Check for raccoons
See if you have raccoons or skunks or squirrels or something.
Like squirrels, cats, like a little cat family. Something is usually the reason, yeah.
Yeah, so lesson learned on my half that they were freaking out.
Should have been earlier,
Yeah.
Should have jumped on that like a couple months ago.
Not that smart. So Philip, you had a horse show today. How would it go?
Well, we just kind of shipped the horses over and rode them over there.
Cool.
Get them ready to show tomorrow. The show actually starts tomorrow. It's
nice.
a pretty big show, pretty exciting. It's a CDI and a qualifier for WEG for a Canadian team. So.
Oh, nice.
I don't have any horses in the Grand Prix, but there's also a national show going on, and it's busy, and it's kind of the first big show for people to go to this season. So we got lots of competitors there. The weather has been beautiful today, so I'm really happy about that.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
But man, is it ever busy? You got to get into horse show mode, and we got to get this horse done, this horse done, this horse done. All of them have to be perfect, and a lot of stress on the trainer's side here. But,
it is.
And of the competitors, and of the riders. I feel their stress. But we had a good day. The only thing I wish, and I'm going to send this out to everybody, is that when you're warming up. And Thursday's a day everybody can ride in the rings.
Yep.
I wish there was a few more people with a little bit of consideration for their fellow riders. I mean, I have 2 riders today that it's their first time going to a big show. One rider, it's their first time going to a show ever. Period. And another one is the first time. I mean, we're all really nervous. Everybody's excited, and everybody's trying to get their kind of their practice patterns done in the ring, but if everybody could be a little bit more considerate of everyone else, and there just seems to be a few riders in there very determined that it's their space and they're going to get their time and they're going to run over anybody else who's in there, and I really don't. That's not friendly. I like it to be a lot more friendly. That your extended trot diagonal is not the most important thing to everybody today.
Yeah.
I know it's very important to you, and I get that, and I understand that, but it just makes for kind of an unfriendly atmosphere, and maybe your horse is not going that well for you today, and it's super stressful and everything, but it's supposed to be fun. Everybody's supposed to be fun, and when you're in there on your Prix St. George horse, it's very intimidating for somebody coming to their first show. And their training level, and everybody's got to get some time in that ring, and because they show there you're going to show there tomorrow, but somebody else has to show there on Saturday, and there's not a lot of time and room for everyone, and I wish everybody could just get along a little bit better, but that's my 2 cents from today.
I think that's pretty good. I think that it's something we all need to remember, and
just relax.
Everybody
smile.
pays the same amount of money to be there.
I
think that's super important.
It's hard for everybody, and we're all coming from a different place and a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
If 2 people run into each other, it happens all the time. Smile. I always try and smile, apologize, shake it off a little bit, and carry on with your business. But there you go. That's it from today.
I got it. Well, we have a horse show too this weekend, and it should be lots of fun. It's actually quite a small show, so. And I actually am just taking my horses, which is pretty cool.
This is a Reese-only show.
It has turned out to be a Reese-only show. So one of my clients' horses was injured, and so I'm going to take my young horse just to cruise around and check things out. And then Winnie will do a Prix St. George, and Denali will do a first level. So I'm just trying to get some horses qualified and knock some out, and it just sort of worked that I was the only one going. So that was kind of nice. So it should be a really fun weekend. My kids are just going to have to be big kids, and they don't show till 11 o'clock on Saturday. So we're actually just going to ship up that morning. So they'll have to put their kind of big kid pants on. And Denali's been there before, and Winnie, she's pretty experienced. I don't worry so much. I like her a little bit. Looky actually makes her a little better in the bridle, so it should be fun. It should be fun. It should be a really fun.
That perfect mix of
I want that uphill structure, and if she's looking a little, that's even better. So that should be fun. So so we have a really good weekend planned. So best of luck to you, Philip. And
good luck to you. And just that we all have fun. Everybody stays on, and that's what we're looking for. Is just
exactly a little bit of fun.
Ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think right after this commercial break, we will talk to Bonnie Walker, dressage blogger.
Are you tired of treating your horse for soreness? Well, then be proactive. Benefab offers you and your horse a natural remedy to joint and muscle stiffness, inflammation, and circulatory deficiencies. Benefab offers a variety of innovative products, like saddle pads and polo wraps and quarter sheets for your horse, and socks and blankets for you. Simply ride in it or wear it. and feel the difference Benefab's ceramic-infused products make. You can check them out online at benefabproducts.com, or you can call them toll-free at 855-957-8378.
Well, it is my pleasure to introduce Bonnie Walker onto the show today. She is a USDF bronze and silver medalist, a first-level L program graduate with distinction, and a certified instructor through first level. The reason that Bonnie is on today is because she writes a really great blog on the website dressagedifference.com, and I know that I've noticed Reese post a couple of her blogs on her Facebook page, if you follow Reese, and I pick up these things, and I'm into more and more reading blogs. So we thought we'd have Bonnie on the show, and we can talk about all kinds of dressage things. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi. Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, well, it's great. We've been I set up this about last week, and I started reading more and more of your blogs. Maybe you can introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your dressage history and what got you started on the blogging.
Okay. Well, my name is Bonnie, and I'm right now the assistant trainer for Tina Caldwell out of San Diego. So I am nicely situated on the West Coast for dressage. I'm in one of the more active spots in the country. So I get to see a lot of wonderful horse rider combinations. Getting started in dressage, I mean, I've ridden my entire life. It's one of those things. And I went up into the professional status kind of through the working student positions rather than the junior young rider route. I never had the horses to do that route, so it was more of catch riding and, whatever people threw at me, I got on. So my motto is never say no. And from there, I slowly worked into assistant trainer positions, and so I finally made my way back to San Diego so I could be a part of, one of the hot spots of United States dressage. And blogging was when I was earlier in my career. There was a lot I didn't know. I mean, there's a lot I still don't know. I mean, anybody who says otherwise, I think they haven't quite learned enough yet. I feel like we're all still learning. That's one of the amazing things about dressage. There's always that new horse. There's always that new student that kind of pushes you beyond what you thought you knew.
So true. It's a daily process around here.
You get a little coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
knock down.
All of a sudden this horse will come along and they'll be like, yeah, they're fine. So blogging was a way for me, looking back on myself, there is I think a little bit of a fear amongst professionals and adult amateurs to say, I don't know. And so blogging was a way for me to get information out into the world, because when I was first beginning in my career, I would go to the internet and go, what the hell was excuse my language, what the heck was this person talking about? When they, mentioned a word or a phrase or a, technique or something like that, I would go to the internet and I would look it up so that I didn't look like, an idiot in front of people who were looking to me as an authority base. And that in itself, I'm not saying is the correct way. I think that we should. And since then, I've gained the confidence to say, I don't know. Let's find out together. But at that point, I didn't. I was still too insecure in my own knowledge base, if that makes sense. So blogging was a way for me to provide information. My website is mostly toward adult amateurs that they might not otherwise feel comfortable asking, or even a beginning professional who has a question and they're not in a situation that they feel comfortable making themselves vulnerable, which in all honesty happens a lot. People are afraid to ask. They're afraid to look dumb. And that was the inspiration behind it. But since then, it's gone and taken this whole new route where I'm just, writing about anything that enters my brain. so yes, that's the story behind Dressage Different.
Oh, I love it. I mean, we've been, Philip and I, like Philip said, I shared your current one. It was all over Facebook today, and it was great. And I read it, and like you said, you really cannot stop learning in this sport, because there's always a better way to say something. There's always a better way to do something, or even a different way.
Yeah. It takes all kinds of perspectives, and I mean, that's what we talk about every week. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, every week you two have different guests on who might say something a different way, or a different, even the same thing they're saying in a slightly different. That's why I named my blog Dressage Different, by the way, is because if you can just keep saying things in different ways, that way number C might really connect with one person, and that's enough. I mean,
it's so true that everybody learns a little bit differently, and so. The more ways, or the more you can just talk on a subject, the more the more understanding everyone can get out of it, and just keep learning and keep being positive, and that's what I love about having all different people on the show, because everybody that we have here loves to teach and gets excited about people learning and helping people learn, and I think we have a lot of enthusiastic listeners who like that as well. So I think that's kind of has set the tone for our show as we try to figure out how to do this radio thing and how to get information out there. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is I do listen to the show, and I have listened for a long time. And it is true that even people, and I'm not saying that I'm constantly disagreeing at all. I think you have excellent guests on the show, but even when you listen to someone and you might not agree with them, I think that gives you such food for thought and really can clarify your own methodology or your own perspective on something. So even different perspectives, it's not like we all need to be, shouting the same anthem. Different perspectives can really galvanize their own training or instruction techniques. And that's
so true.
Cute.
Yeah, that's a really good way to think of it. So Bonnie, talk to us a little bit about some of your blog entries, or even your favorite entries that you've done.
Well, it's so funny because my favorite entries tend to be like really more the drier entries, maybe not some of the most popular ones. Like I did one on absolute elevation that I put a lot of work into. Like I sat up and I'm not an artist, and I'm, drawing these little diagrams and because I try to never use work without the permission of the artist. So I'm trying to make my own terrible drawings, and I swear I spent like an entire day setting up that article, and it didn't go too well. I'm not saying that it wasn't well received; it just wasn't the more popular article. I think that the articles that tend to be more popular, one in particular, you had Catherine Haddad-Stoller on the show a few weeks ago, where she had an article that was confrontational in some people's eyes. I personally didn't feel that way, but there was an article that was similar in theme to that called Our Responsibility to Dressage Trainers. And I think that my article, in a lot of ways, I don't disagree with what Catherine said at all, but in a lot of ways, my article was voicing the opposite in what do clients owe their dressage trainers as far as behavior patterns and acknowledgement. And what I mean by that is you have a dressage trainer, and in this general climate of I don't know, it's easy to consider that only the best trainer, quote unquote, the trainer with the most accolades or the most awards, is suited to teach you. And I think that in your interview a few weeks ago, Catherine mentioned that, something like in Europe that it would never be expected that you would go and teach or be taught by Edward Gall. I think she used that as her example. Whereas here, there's a little bit of a pressure to every single one of us need to be a little bit the best. And my article was exploring the nuances of understanding that not all trainers are out there in the same package. There are children's trainers. There are trainers that love to compete, but there are others that haven't competed in 20 years. There's trainers who are excellent business people and excellent trainers, but not instruction isn't their forte.
Yeah.
Or the opposite. Yeah. They're great teachers, but they're not great at starting young horses.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, and I saw this article and I read it, and I mean, not all coaches are great competition riders, you know? So it's tough to, when you're evaluating, you know, who should I go for lessons? This person has 8 gold medals. That'll be the best trainer for me. That's not necessarily true, right? So
I completely agree.
It's something to think about. And if you're an adult amateur with certain goals, not the Olympics, which is, you know, most adult amateurs, you're not looking to go to the Olympics, then do you need an Olympic coach? So a little bit on the other side of Catherine's article, but, you know, I think all coaches should be striving for education and striving to teach better and be spending a little bit of time on that. I mean, some riders are only spending their time on themselves and how they can get their competition horses better. And sometimes it's easier to pick out those people to coach you because you can say, oh, well, they've ridden this, and this, and have all kinds of medals and all this. And I don't know. It's just tough. It's really tough to evaluate somebody, you know, for their coaching ability. You know, maybe you should go to a show. If you're looking to show at a lower level, go to a show with some coaches that teach people at a lower level and see if they're, you know, if their people are having success, if their students are having success at the lower levels where you'd like to be, that might be the coach for you. And then maybe you could save a little bit of money and not have that Olympian and be spending, you know, hundreds and thousands of dollars every month on coaching that you don't necessarily are getting a lot out of. So it's really tough. Right. It's really tough finding somebody to coach you.
It is. And I think it depends on your area. And I think you have to be willing to, you know, I've had this happen in the last couple weeks. Somebody that lives relatively far from me. And, you know, they just felt like they couldn't drive to my farm. And I said, that's fine, but that's going to limit what you're going to be able to do. And I said, listen, I went to Europe to find. I've been to Florida. I've been all over the world for good instruction. So sometimes it may not be the most convenient, but it may be the right thing for you and your horse at the time, or maybe not. It just depends on what's going on and where you are. And it turned out it was great. There was a friend of mine that I was able to send them that was a little closer for them. But it was good. They needed to make a change from a young rider instructor, from a kid instructor to a little bit more not sophisticated, but a little bit higher level person. And the young kid trainer was great with that, and that was part of it. And I think that, you know, as instructors should be okay with allowing their students to move on if it's necessary. And I think that can be hard.
Right, yeah, it is. I mean, I'm sure it's always hard because you build a relationship with someone, and then, you know, and then that relationship changes. But as far as, you know, thinking about that article, I know I keep mentioning Catherine's article, but it kind of was a lot of food for thought for me in how we pursue our education. And I think that worry of losing clients puts a huge kibosh on a lot of instructors' pursuit of further education in the United States. And it puts a fear of associating with other instructors who could potentially, quote unquote, take clients. There's a huge economic incentive, you know, or not incentive, to stay ignorant and pretend you're the best rather than go out there. For example, the instructor certification program. You go to, say you have a barn full of 10 horses, 10 clients, everybody's happy and chumming along. And then you go to the instructor certification program, you go through it, and you don't pass. And I'm not saying that they should pass you, but just because you go through it. That's not the point of the program. But then you, as the person, are then having to go back to your clients and hope that they are loyal enough to you, or whatever word you want to put into that, understanding that they don't say, what, you didn't pass your certification? Does that mean you don't know anything? Wait a second, look around and go to the person next door, if that makes sense. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think that is necessarily an excuse. I certainly have seen so many instructors pursue their own educations, strive for better, and I think that does need to happen. And
yeah.
Without argument.
I think it's tough. Yeah, the economic factor in a lot of things. I know we talk about another blog with Lauren Spreitzer. She writes about, the stress of professional riders not showing younger horses or not showing horses that aren't perfect at a level because they're afraid of getting out there and not having this great success, and then other people seeing that and going, oh, well, Philip can't ride, Lauren can't ride, Reese can't ride because that horse went so badly in that second level test.
Right. Or
that's a really tough place for a professional to be in, and or to take a horse to a clinic that's open to the public, and then that's a little bit of a troubled horse or a horse that is not going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And then you're not
a horse that you should be taking to the clinic.
Yeah, that needs to go to the clinic for education, but having the fear that other people are going to see me, I'm going to lose clients because the instructor's not just going to praise me while I ride around and make a show around the ring.
Right.
I think
so
it's a tough pressure, and I don't know what the answer is, but I think everyone needs a little bit more kind of understanding that if you're an up-and-coming rider, professionals need education too, and they need to, they need to take their horses out, and they need to, we all fail at some point, right? And we all have troubled horses that have different pasts, and that's just a reality of this business. And not every horse I sit on is going to go wonderfully every day, and I need to be able to take it out and get some lessons too. So what?
Right, without being afraid.
Without being afraid, without losing a ton of business. Yeah, that's the fear. It's not me failing. I don't care if I fail or not. I've made an ass out of myself all the time. But it's the fear that there's another perspective. I won't get that client, or I'll lose this horse. I'll lose this ride. Because there's this putting riders on a pedestal and that kind of thing. And
I think another big thing for instructors that when you talk about that blog and go back and revisit is, education is expensive in this country, and it's far more expensive here. We were talking off the air about the instructor certification. That is an extremely expensive venture to go on. Huge. It's so expensive, and I'm thrilled that I was certified when I was young. I was 24, and which is interesting because me at 34 from 24 when I took the exam, I'm a completely different instructor than I was 10 years ago. Because I've learned and failed and fail again, and sometimes so I think over 10 years you just become I think we could all say that you just grow. I grow every year, and I've grown since I've done the show, and since I talk to a lot of people now. But it's extremely expensive. So for me to go to Florida to have 2 months of training is a huge venture, because I have to close my barn in Kentucky or have staff up here. And then, just the cost of lessons. I think the cost of lessons in the United States are so much higher than they are in Europe. It's a joke on how much, the trainers are not making $300 a ride in Europe. I can tell you that right now.
Right.
They're just not. And so and really at the end of the day, instructors don't make that much money. So you really have to say, people think, oh my gosh, they charge X. Well, trust me, my overhead is huge. And so to go to a clinic, that's a huge budget issue as well. So, and it's much more in this country than it is, I think, in Europe for sure. So that's another kind of avenue that students should also think about that for their instructors. And my goodness, I'm saying this to my students, to say, hey, we're going to send you that clinic, or we're going to send you to the trainers conference as a Christmas gift. I would love that. That would be great to help. I think that's a big deal. I think that students also need to see that is, yes, you're paying us. We need to continue to be educated, but man, once you get to a certain level, you're paying $600 to $1,200 a weekend depending on how many horses you ride, that's a huge chunk. So.
Yeah,
I
it's big money.
I can't stress enough how much I agree with that. Where if we could encourage a climate of everybody's students supporting the education of their instructors.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that would open a lot of doors to a lot of people and lift the overall standard of instruction. The good thing and why I decided to blog, aside from my, just love of writing and having people listen to me unwillingly.
Don't you think too?
Yeah.
Because it's a very safe forum to learn, the internet, and I know that it's a limited forum. You're not going to get the same education reading a series of blogs that you are on a 3-day clinic, or like you said, 2 months in Florida, or going through the L, which is one of the things that I did. But it's cheap, and if you are making $19,000 a year in rural Oklahoma as a dressage instructor, and you can't afford to drop $3,000 in coin on a trip to Sacramento for going through the L, then at least there can be some resources. And mine isn't the only by far at all. I'm not trying to say that, but I just wanted to contribute to that for everyone.
I think the technology is helping a lot of people, me included, with the internet, and YouTube has been so helpful, and the radio show and bloggers. We have lots of bloggers on because they're doing a good job of at least creating some discussion on different topics, right? When you talk about things, people learn. You can always learn something from a discussion. Bonnie, do you want to pick one other favorite blog or one that a lot of people would know maybe that you want to talk about?
The other big blog that, well, again, this was one of the blogs that I wrote that I didn't pour my soul into, but what proved to be very popular was the Symbolic Totalist. That was one that made the rounds a number of times. And then after that, Pulse was nice enough to post it up on Eurodressage, where then it really
that one exploded, I think.
Yeah,
as well.
that was awesome.
Yeah, which was so great of her to do. But it did garner a lot of discussion. I got lots of feedback on both ends of the spectrum, which is interesting because when I don't filter myself. I write what I think and I put it out there. And I never had been on such a wide forum to receive that worldwide on some ends of the spectrum, really positive feedback, and on other ends of the spectrum, not so positive feedback. But essentially that was an article whose point was talking about the change in sport horses as breeding develops beyond Totalists. I mean, in 20 years, can you imagine the standard of horse that's going to be out there? It's going to be insane. From 20 years ago to now, the leaps and bounds have been huge. And then what that means for us in the dressage community and how we look at the standards of dressage, as well, respecting the combination rather than the horse as this self-identified phenom that is amazing alone. I think that what I was writing was that Totalist was sold for record amounts of money, and poor Matthias Rath, a relatively young rider, inherited arguably at the time the best horse in the world. And from that experience, everybody, I think, learned that there's really nowhere to go but down.
Right. I mean, yeah. I think it's not arguably the best horse in the world. That horse made that kind of money. It was record scores. I mean, there's no argue about it when the horse makes those records. So, yeah, he got sold, and that was a big thing to put on a young guy's shoulders. But and we've seen how it goes, the ups and downs, and the way it is, and that's horses, that's riding, that's dressage, right? So,
Right, absolutely. And I think that type of combination with, and I was talking again about the respect for the combination, meaning the latest one being Allegro and Charlotte Desjardins, and how the horse was up for sale and that he has not sold, and that nobody
wants that pressure.
Nobody needs that pressure, right? It's not fun.
Everyone looks at it.
Exactly.
But I think that I was just going to say, it comes back to, I don't care who you are. You're going to buy a horse that's successful. And I think this happens even just for everybody to think about. You buy a horse, it's going to take a year to get to know that horse. It just is. I don't care if you're the best rider in the world. There's going to be a level of, that horse's whole program changes. Unless, you buy a horse in the same barn and you have the same trainer and same grooms, but you're still having to ride that horse. And it's going to take quite a bit of time. And I just don't think
the more trained the horses, the more time it takes.
Yep, exactly.
Fact, right? To either retrain or just learn little idiosyncrasies. And, Titleist's training didn't happen in a day for Edward Gall. It was years. It was years before he came to Grand Prix. And that's the same, and we have to respect it out of every horse. It's just, a certain person trains a certain way and they ride a certain way. It's not just, kick and pull till the horse goes around beautifully, right? So
right. And I think that there was some expectation a couple of years ago, and some of my critics, if you can call them that, people with other opinions, brought up a very good point that Titleist is a stallion, so at least they can get a return on investment. Though that's a lot of phantom mountings.
Yeah.
Sure.
It adds up, but it takes a long time.
I mean, I don't think he would be able to compete. He'd be in that room exhausted 24/7 to get a return on that investment. But and they were saying that maybe that's the difference between the Allegro, the fact that he's a gelding. I personally disagree. I feel that if somebody wants success, they're going to pay what they need to pay to get it. But I think that Titleist acted as a cautionary tale of sorts to prospective, like, let's say, sponsored riders. And their sponsors will say, I'll pay whatever. Do they want a horse that stepped into the limelight as the best horse? Or do they want to get something that is very good in anonymity? And like you said,
that's what I would want.
That pressure.
Like, that's what I would want.
Right?
I think people learn that, and I think people really learned through that whole thing of it is not as easy as it looks, guys, and it's very, very difficult to do that. So I think we're seeing that now when it comes to the sale of these other horses, and it's like, ooh, and I think that a lot of people. I mean, I remember being interviewed. What do you think about the sale of Titleist? And I'm like, oh, my master's is in economics. I think it's awesome to have the idea that I can remotely sell a horse for that
anyone
kind of
out
money.
there riding or as a professional say, great, the more money these people give for horses just raises the standard a little bit, and really it, the value there was like, now that we've seen it in a little bit of perspective, the story's not over, but the value was in the training, right? And as a trainer, I love that, right? Because a lot of people can go out there and buy a fancy mover in the field, but it was down to the training that there was a lot of value in that, and that's a little bit of affirmation for what we do. So I like that. Yeah.
And it's you who makes your horse, and whomever gets on makes the horse. And because that horse is made, it doesn't mean that the next person who mounts him or her suddenly becomes a replacement. Right. Like you said, it takes years.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal because, that's always a conversation I have with somebody who gets a schoolmaster. They think, well, I paid all this money and I should be able to just pop on and go win or go do and get my silver medal. And I'm like, Yeah, not so much. I mean, maybe, but it doesn't work that way.
Right. Never say never. You always be proven wrong if you say never.
And I love to be proven wrong for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, please prove me wrrong. Work hard and prove me wrong.
But awesome. 9 times out of 10, you're not. 9 times out of 10, if you put a training level rider on a I-1 horse, let's say, you're not going to be going out in 6 months and getting your silver because the horse knows it. There is a learning curve that's massive from rider to horse. And of course, that's, not what I'm saying where total has happened, but on an everyday sense, that does occur constantly. And having a horse that is that tuned is an amazing opportunity, but there comes a lot of frustrations with it as you try to learn those buttons. It's like, do you want to start flying your airplane on a little twin prop plane, or do you want to get right into the jet fighter with 1,000 buttons and the Mach 6? It's a different reality.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It takes time. So, Bonnie, I wanted to thank you for coming on the show tonight and to talk a little bit about your blogging. Now, if you want to talk about your website a little bit, that would be great. Where is it? You've got a couple of different things on there, as far as your business. So maybe you want to go over that real quick for us, because I think there's some interesting ideas that you've brought to riding and learning and stuff. So,
well, feel free if there's a point that you want me to make it for me, because I'll definitely skip over it. Whenever I'm asked, I'll definitely miss the central point, but I'll give it my best go. My website is dressagedifferent.com. It is mostly articles, but I'll also I try to cut some of the instructional articles with more, just funnier, lighter stuff. Like I have little cartoons that I'll put up occasionally that are just poking fun at horse culture and just that the ridiculousness that we all go through as we get kind of like sucked into the void. I also have obviously my contact information for my live and in person being. Again, I said I was the assistant for Tina out in San Diego, so there's that. But aside from that, I have also the funnier articles that I put on there just to help any adult amateur that comes in and might feel a little under or overwhelmed, I should say, just kind of poking fun at themselves so that they can get that they're not alone out there, that there's a lot of people like them. I also offer a virtual training program, if that's one of the things that you were thinking of, which is people who have no access to dressage instruction whatsoever, and they need some feedback or they need something that they want help with, and they want someone whose voice they're familiar with, because I'm on constantly, so people know me in some form. So there's that as an opportunity as well. But yeah, so that's my website. Sometimes you're too close to something, so you don't really know how to describe it best. But that's
I think you do a pretty good job there. Yeah, people can check it out. It's pretty easy. And
I'll try to talk about anything but myself.
And you're on Facebook and you're a Twitterer as well, right?
I am all over.
I think you're all over the social media thing.
Yeah, I did the Twitter thing, the Facebook thing, and I actually was on Tumblr because I heard that's where all teenage girls are going now. So I went on Tumblr, and I'm terrible at Tumblr.
I have no idea.
Yeah. What can I say?
But thanks again for doing this with us, Bonnie.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, and have a great day.
Oh my gosh, I had so much fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, that was a really fun discussion with Bonnie Walker. I enjoyed that. We will have her back on again when she posts something new. She was a breath of fresh air. Really enjoyed talking with her. So right after this commercial break, you and I, Philip, are going to talk about the 8 training tips from Kira Kirkland. Beth Baumet wrote it from Dressage Today, so I'm looking forward to that.
Hi, Glenn here with the Horse Radio Network, and I am with Debbie from Equestrian Collections with her product of the week.
Well, it's that time of the year. Spring grasses are coming up. Our horses who might have insulin-resistant issues are wanting to get out with everybody else, and those of them who are maybe a little on the portly side, you need to be careful what they're eating. The product this week is the Cashel Grazing Muzzle Halter. The reason I picked this one to talk about is because this is the one I use. I like it because it's an entire halter. It does not attach to a pre-existing halter, so you can just easily put it on and off right there in the pasture. It also has a ring that down at the base of the chin where you would have a ring on any other halter. And so you can actually lead them around with this thing on, which I thought was really great. And the third thing is it doesn't fall in on itself. It's nice and stiff, but not too stiff. It's easy on the muzzles, but it's not too stiff. It won't fall in on them, so they can breathe a little bit easier. It's easy for them to drink out of. Mine drinks with it all the time. And it doesn't seem to bother them as much. And there's another thing you can do with this thing besides keeping them off the grass. If you have a procedure coming up and your horse is not allowed to eat, you can put this on and he can still drink water and walk around with his buddies, but he can't, eat. So that's another thing to keep in mind. It's very adjustable. It's easy and it really works. And I like the fact that they can drink out of it so easily.
That's right. Our horse speaker is a fatty, and he's got his muzzle on already. The grass is getting green here in Florida, so he had his muzzle on yesterday. And you know what's funny is he was so excited to put it on because he knew he was going to be going out in the green grass.
Yes. I have the same thing with mine. I have a one that has an IR issue, but when I bring the muzzle out to put them out, all the other horses come running nickering because they know when they see that muzzle that they're going to get to go out.
Yes, and these are not that expensive, $28 to $35. So, right.
They come in several different sizes. They come in horse, and they have the small mini one too. So minis always have to have these things on.
Yes, that's
so
right.
There you go.
The Cashel Grazing Muzzle Halter. Just search for Cashel Grazing Muzzle when you go to equestriancollections.com and buy one today.
We decided today we would actually work on, we found this training tip online, which is 8 training tips from Kira Kirkland. And we gave Carl Hester, we did his list a couple months ago. So we thought we would start with Kira's list. So we're trying to grab
love when we get
masters.
these short, really useful little tips here, and we can bring them onto our show and just have a quick talk about them. And that's great from a great trainer, right?
Exactly. Okay, so number 1, training tips from Kira Kirkland. Your horse should be relaxed, but relaxed doesn't mean lazy. And
I think we hit on this actually last episode, right? Relax is important, but
did.
lazy, there's a fine line. It's not so fine between relaxed and lazy, and relaxed energy, I like to describe it as, right?
Yeah.
So. To our next one, be emotionally calm when you are teaching your horse.
This is huge. This is
huge, and this is something I struggle with a lot.
Me too.
You're so emotionally invested in a horse or a student, and I tend to get a little too charged up sometimes. Trying to get a point across, or when I'm riding, getting things a little bit my way, and I've got to a lot of times take a walk break and just do my best to dial it back a little bit, and I know that that's one of my faults. I have lots, and that's one of them, and I have to always working on doing a better job of this because you get too overzealous about things, and you get too much, and then nobody's learning anything, and that can be a big problem. So
this is a big deal. I think I literally just stepped out of my ring to come in here to do the show, and I was teaching a young woman who. Her mom owns the horse, but it's a big horse, and she really wants to sell it. The mom really wants to keep it, and she's been having some training issues with the horse, and it just sort of all came to a head. And there is no way, and I even said that to her. I said, this is not this horse's fault or problem. He's really not being a bad guy. It's just maybe not the right situation for everybody. But every time you come out and ride that horse, you need to shrug all this off and train him the best of your ability. But that's a really big deal because it's very hard for her to be emotionally calm at this point because she's so upset that she wants to sell this horse. And so there's a lot of emotion wrapped up in the horse being strong, which yes, the horse is being strong, but he doesn't mean to, and that's not his fault, and he should be trained appropriately. So there you go.
We bring so much emotion to the horses every day, emotion from our other lives, emotions from different work, when riding is not your profession, or for when it is your profession, it's the last horse you rode, you're thinking about it, and you maybe had problems with it, and then you're taking that to the next horse. It's not fair on the horse, and you just got to strive to do a good job of being calm and putting certain things aside and carrying on with being a good teacher, right?
Exactly.
The third one?
So
let's go with the third.
Okay, the horse is in a perfect balance when he is on his own. When the rider is aboard, some horses have better balance than others, but the riders always need to rebalance with half halts. Keep your weight balanced in the middle of your horse's back. The weight aid is the most important aid because it influences the horses at all times. You can take the rein and legs away, but your weight is always present. Keep it in the middle of the horse. Once you're balanced, you can rebalance your horse.
That's great. I think that's pretty self-explanatory there, Reese.
Yep.
Yeah, we put a big weight on the horse's back, and it's our job to be balanced before we can have any good influence on the horse. So let's go right to number 4. Riding with your horse's head down doesn't mean he is on the bit. You want your horse's back to be like an arched bridge, not like a hanging bridge. When the bridge is arched, the horse's underline contracts, and then the top line can lengthen. When the bridge is hanging, the underline lengthens and the rider sits in the hole, which is uncomfortable for both horse and rider. I think this just goes back to a little bit that this the term "on the bit" is the worst thing in the world.
Yes,
because it doesn't really
Mm-mm.
describe what it talks about.
Right.
I've heard that it's a bad translation, and I think that I try to stay away from using on the bit unless the rider has a really good understanding of what that means through the whole of the horse's energy and body, and it's a term that describes way too much for the little concise little snippet there. So when the horse is not on the bit, there can be 100 problems that is the reason. But riders get into fussing with horses' head and contact and stuff because that's what they think on the bit means. So we try and educate our riders as much as possible that is not a great term to describe so many things that are going on. And so I like this bridge arch thing we've talked about. Last week we were talking about, I think, waves, how the crest of the wave is a horse's pole, and I think we struggle every single week on this show to come up with more descriptions about what on the bit means. So I think it's an overused term and an understood term. So I'm glad to see that here and described in a good way.
Like a bridge, like an arched bridge. I like that.
Bridge.
So number 5, it sometimes helps to teach your horse a concept or movement in the walk. If you can't do it slowly, you won't be able to do it fast either. This is like learning to drive in first gear. In the walk, the horse can move easily listen to and understand your aids, give to the aids, and can come up in its back. Of course, it's not possible to teach some things like flying changes in the walk, but this tip helps with many other movements. I love this tip.
Great tip.
We do this a ton. I mean, this is sort of my motto. Can't do it in the walk, especially when it comes to learning lateral work, shoulder in,
hunches I was going to say, half-pass is a huge one, yeah.
We do a lot. And we do a lot of walking to the mirror, and this is a good one. So I really do like that one.
Helping riders figure out where their body is, helping the horse figure out where their body is, and bringing it together. Even I take it to the next step to say we do things a little bit in slow trot without a ton of energy and power to get it right first and teach a horse strength and balance, and then build energy and power and movement, because it's too hard, especially Travers and half pass I think are huge ones, because the bending has to be right, and if you're pushing for all that energy, elevation, all those things that kind of goes a little bit awry. So we try and go back to the training scale, rhythm, suppleness, right? And sometimes even if that rhythm is a little bit slower to help horse and rider figure it out, that can help. And then we're thinking about, straightness and power and energy and those kinds of things. So, break it down, slow it down for yourself, right? Slow it down. And even into test movements, when you're riding a pattern in a test, sometimes just walk the pattern first. So you're not using all the horse's energy when it's the rider trying to figure out, okay, where do I go now? What do I do? Where do I turn? What do I do, right? It saves a bit of energy for you to ride later on and stress and tiring your horse out, doing something wrong over and over and over again. Great chance just to walk it out, right?
Exactly.
Okay, number 6. All change is difficult, whether we're talking about changing the rider or changing the horse. Habits, both good and bad ones, have become automatic, unconscious behaviors, so they are hard to change. Recent research shows that it takes 100,000 repetitions to break an old habit and as many as 5,000 to create a new one. Also, you can only change one thing at a time because the conscious brain can only process one thing at a time. That's good.
Yeah,
Bringing a little science and research into this job that we do that's so hard.
Yeah, and I had heard 10,000 repetitions, not 100,000, but that makes sense. I mean, you think about how many times you do something and how many times it changed. Even like brushing my teeth. I hurt my shoulder this week, and I had to try to brush my teeth with my left hand. Oh my goodness!
It's impossible.
I was like, whoa! My teeth were not very clean there for a while. So it's very hard. The same thing when it comes to riding, and this also comes to teaching as well. I mean, as a teacher, we want to change a lot of things sometimes, and I really have to say to myself, pick one thing that in this hour I think I'm going to make it the biggest difference.
Right.
And really focus on that. And it's cute because sometimes I'll have people auditing and they'll say, oh, this is happening and this is happening and this is happening. And you really have to say, yeah, I know all that's happening.
Yeah, that's
but
okay.
If I can fix this one thing, it could potentially lead to helping all these other things. So I think that's where an instructor comes in and kind of knows, no, this is the route. If I can fix that, a lot of these other things
to
will
prioritize, things that are going right and wrong, and to break it down for a rider. I mean, I'm going to bring it back because the horse shows are on my mind. When we're showing, you give a lot of instruction to a rider, but you say, what I like to do is break it down and say, in this test today, you are going to work on this when you get in the ring. One thing, maybe two, but one or two things, right? And if that is successful, you've done a great job. I don't care about what the score is. I don't care if this is the championships or not, or all this pressure you put on yourself. Just show me this one difference.
One thing, yeah.
Yeah. If you could have a little more energy in your test, fantastic. This is going to be success for you today. And you can build from that. But if you say to somebody, or if you're going in the ring thinking, okay, I got to get this halt, then I got to do this, and then boom, it's all gone. It's all gone. I like to, think big picture with horses and big picture with riders, even when there's, a million different movements, even if it's a Pre-St. George, there's tons of stuff going on. You can only really focus and fix, one thing, whether it's overall or whether it's your shoulder. And I just want the shoulder in good today, and the rest of the test could be out the window. I don't really care, right? I think that helps focus people and get real results of one or two things that you can change, and not to worry about 100 things that you can't. So
exactly,
I really like it.
Yeah, I like that one as well. So. Excellent. Okay, number 7. Keep the rein contact steady. The horse needs some support from the rein. It's similar to lunging a horse with side reins. They give a frame. If he pulls on the side reins, he pulls on himself. When he challenges the rider's reins, he resists with the reins within the same frame, not by pulling back and trying to shorten the frame. And I think that's a great way. When I teach contact and teach people about contact, I really try to give the idea of lunging and what
the side reins can do.
The side reins are doing. Yeah. I think that's a big one. So I think that's just a good visual to remember.
Yeah, if all else fails, just keep it steady and help your horse out a little bit, right? Yeah, I mean, contact is so complicated, and there's so many things going on with the horse's body that influences contact and stuff like that. So when all else fails, if you can't do anything else, just keep it steady, help your horse around the ring, and you'll not be doing a bad thing by doing that, right? You can ride transitions, you can do tons of other things, but if you're not giving kind of a helpful, steadier feel, then yeah, you're failing the horse a little bit. Okay, number 8. This is the last one. When you stretch your horse, he still has to carry himself. Feel that he has equal contact in both reins when he reaches down, and keep him active and connected.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
And I think it's a really good one. And I think I'm going to bring in a pet peeve. I hate that we have a stretchy circle on training level test 1.
Yeah.
I think by training level test 3, I have absolutely no problem that your horse should start to stretch and be able to carry himself and be able to hold the stretch and hold his body. In training level test 1, it's very, very difficult, especially when you have a young horse and they're at a horse show and they're looking at things, to start to say, okay, come on, you're going to have a little bit more rein and you're going to have to carry yourself. Oh, boy.
Yeah. I agree.
So,
I was thinking about that today. Like, this is training level test 1. Oh, there's a stretch circle in it. Oh,
there's
God.
a stretch circle.
How hard is that, right?
Yes.
I mean, just to get around and walk, trot, canter with more or less steady contact, it's a hard job. So, but they put it in there, so we have to teach it, and riders have to ride it, and that's the way it goes. But again, I think this is not so straightforward, and don't feel bad if it's not going perfect for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of young horses that we ride. It's so tough, and it just takes practice. It takes the horse going correctly. I mean, that's why it's in there. When we get down to it, the judges want and training needs to be in the right way, and that is a good show of that the contact is right and the horse is going well over the back and all these things, right? So it's in there. It's in the first test. It's super important. I agree, but it's hard to do on show day when everyone's nervous, and so if you struggle with this, it's not a big deal. You're still probably doing a pretty good job, right?
Yeah. It's going to take a little while. It took my young horse forever to figure it out. And then finally now he stretches great. And he's like, oh, okay, this is what I do.
Okay, this is kind of fun.
It took a while.
Then you get the horses that only want to stretch
all
the time through the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a little frustrating.
Exactly. Not so much. So, but that was a great list.
Great tips and things for people to think about. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like
it.
I like it when you get stuff like this.
I know. So, Philip, I have one shout out to make, and it's literally just came final. So I want to give a shout out to Rebecca Hart. She is a friend of mine. She just won. She's a 5-time USCF national champion, and actually now she is a 6-time USCF national champion in the Grade 2 rider at the at the USCF Para Equestrian Dressage National Championships and Selection Trials. So I think Becca's going to be going back to WEG.
She's on her way to WEG, again.
Mm-hmm. And
she's
I couldn't
definitely a friend of the show. She's come on the Dressage radio show lots, and we love having her on, and especially the Para show, and wow, highly decorated rider. Yeah, very successful, very good rider.
Amazing person as well. And to all the other riders that competed at the Para, I'm sure actually the Para they'll have a great show on it in a couple weeks to wrap everything up. But we just wanted to give a shout out to her because she is fabulous. So, awesome. And please don't forget emails and Facebook shout outs to us. We love them. Keep them coming. It helps us bring you some great programming. And
if you see it, we cover a lot of articles from other people. If you see something that you'd like, hey, I wonder if we could talk about it or have that person on, send a suggestion. We can only try our best, right?
Absolutely. And we are happy to have everybody on. So, but you can find those show notes and links to today's guest on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter @Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
You can find me at philipparksequestrian.com, and my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week for allowing us to put on our show, and don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and I hope everyone that's at a horse show this weekend has a great time, and we will talk to you next week.